So what I want to do now is I want to do what it says here to replace this with our contents, and our contents will be brought in from the code pen. And the reason for this is just that it's markup. That would be not very interesting for you to watch while I type this. But I wanted to explain real quick what this markup looks like and the reason for its structure. So let me save here so we can see the changes. And you can tell here that we have a main section here with basically different divs that are wrapping inputs and labels. So you can see that's one. Here we have another one, and so on and so forth. You can also tell that the input is always first and then comes the label. This is going to become important. And one last thing is that we have 4 attributes on our labels, and we are matching those to the IDs that we have set for our inputs. And the reason to do this is so that you can actually click on the label and you can interact with the input itself. So if I didn't have that association, I wouldn't be able to click on the label to make the checkbox change states. Okay, so having said that, there's also, if you go to the pen, you'll notice that we have these centered not only in the horizontal, but also vertically. And we will accomplish that in a minute. And this is why we want this kind of wrapping main section here. Could have been a div as well, but a main would probably be more semantic in this particular case. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the scss file, our Sass file. And you'll notice that it already has some basic styles here that I added. But what we want is to start modifying the main section and adding styles for it. So first, you'll notice I'm adding a height of 90 VH, which is 90% of the total height of the viewport. Then I'm adding a display flex, which is essentially creating a flex container. And then flex direction column will tell us that the axis for the flex box will be top to bottom. And I'm justifying and aligning the items on the center, meaning that it will be centered both vertically and horizontally. So it's a column of items that will be centered both vertically and horizontally. Then we have the ampersand, which is basically a this. So this element, the main element, will have children, which are divs. And all of the divs will have a min width of 300 pixels and also a margin top of 30 pixels, meaning that they will be separated 30 pixels from the rest of them. And let me add, just for reference, a couple borders so you can see where everything is. So to recap, we have our body that's surrounding everything. Then we have a main section, which is 90% of the total height that we have available. And then we have inside of that a bunch of divs, which are going to be separated by 30 pixels each. And this will grow and shrink with us, but the minimum width that they will have is 300 pixels, and they will be always centered. Okay, great. So you can tell now that there are some squiggly lines on the bottom of some of my rules and values, and let's explore what the environment has to say about that. So if I scroll down here, you'll notice that it's a SASLint problem, and it says the color literals such as this one should only be used in variable declarations. And kind of makes sense. We don't really want to have these values scattered all over our code. So what we can do is create a variable for this. Alright, having fixed that, we can move on to the next error, and it says that align items was expected, but it found height. What this means is that you can tell here that the property sort order is not correct. And this can be a little bit picky, but let's just roll with it and alphabetically order our rules here. Alright, so in theory, this will be helping us to write more quality Sass, and in turn have the ability to maintain this code easier. The last thing I wanted to touch on here was the material icons. So right now there's no way for us to use the material icons on this code base, but we need to bring them in. And there are a couple of ways we can do that, but we will just go with the quicker one, and that is going to be heading to the index HTML up top where the head is and adding a new link there. Okay, so what we're doing here is we are adding the CDN version of the material icons font that we can just import and use in our project. The caveat here is that this will not be available to us if we do not have an internet connection. And we can probably address this later on, but for now, this should do. And so we can test that. You can tell here on the top left of our page that we are bringing in the icons. If I were to comment out this part, you'll notice that we only get the same contents as we have here, checkbox and checkbox outline blank. So we can tell by that that this is actually working. Great.